One by one, the walls are crumbling. The temples are emptying. The statues that once held power are now silent. And the voices that told you what to believe are fading into echoes. Not because faith is dying, but because something older, something deeper, is waking up inside of you. They told you salvation was outside, that heaven was far away, that truth had to be delivered by someone holier, wiser, chosen. But what if they were wrong? What if the sacred was never meant to be owned? What if the real temple was always within you? You were never meant to kneel forever. You were meant to rise, to remember, to reconnect, not through dogma, not through fear, but through your own direct line to source, your breath, your body, your being. This is not rebellion. This is return. Because there is a new age unfolding, a shift written in the stars, a wave that cannot be stopped. And those who once held the keys to the sacred are losing their grip, not because truth is lost, but because truth is becoming sovereign. This is not the end of God. This is the end of the middleman. And what comes next is nothing short of divine. It begins quietly, not with fire or fury, but with a whisper that unsettles the soul. A pause, a silence inside the heart. Where once there was certainty, now there is space. For some, it starts with a question, a small crack in the wall of belief, a ritual that no longer resonates, a prayer that echoes back hollow, a truth once held sacred, now trembling under the weight of time. For others, it starts with grief, the loss of a spiritual home, the ache of outgrowing something that once held everything together. It doesn't matter how it begins. What matters is that it has begun. And once it begins, it cannot be undone. You look around, and the structures that shaped your soul for decades, the pews, the robes, the commandments, they feel distant, heavy, cold. You remember what it felt like to believe blindly, to surrender authority to something outside yourself, to crave the comfort of answers, even when the questions weren't your own. But now you're starting to feel something different, a presence rising within you, quiet but undeniable, a knowing that doesn't come from scripture, but from the marrow of your being. This isn't rebellion, it's revelation. Not the kind found in end-time warnings, but the kind that happens when a soul remembers what it is. You were told that without religion, you'd be lost, that without a doctrine, you'd fall, that without a priest, you couldn't hear God. But what if you were never lost? What if your soul was never broken? What if the divine had been speaking to you all along? In your dreams, in your intuition, in the silence you were taught to fear. Religion was never the enemy. It was a bridge, a container for a time. It carried the sacred through the dark ages. It gave structure to the soul's longing. And for many, it was holy. But we were never meant to live in the container forever. We were meant to outgrow it, to dissolve the walls and walk into the light of our own knowing. This is not blasphemy. This is birth. A new kind of human is emerging. One who doesn't reject God, but meets God without permission. One who doesn't kneel in fear, but rises in reverence. This is the collapse of outer salvation, the beginning of inner sovereignty. And though it may feel like the end, it is only the first breath of something eternal, awakening within you. The age of Pisces was the age of belief. For just over 2,000 years, The Piscean frequency wrapped humanity in a sacred dream, a dream of surrender, a dream of salvation, a dream of finding something greater than ourselves, outside of ourselves. It was the age of the fish, symbol of Christ, symbol of sacrifice, symbol of the soul lost at sea, longing to return home, and religion was the vessel. From the rise of Christianity to the spread of Islam, from Buddhist monasticism to the caste rituals of Hinduism, spiritual systems blossomed across continents, each promising transcendence in exchange for devotion. This wasn't manipulation, not at first. The Piscean Age was divinely timed, a necessary chapter in the evolution of human consciousness. We were still young, still fractured, still searching for light in the dark. And so, religion gave us structure. It gave us myth, rhythm, ritual. It gave the masses something to belong to. A moral compass, a community, a path toward redemption. It taught us to believe in something we could not see, to pray, to imagine, to surrender to mystery, even when the answers were unclear. Pisces rules the unseen, the emotional, the mystical, and in its highest form, it awakens compassion. The kind of compassion that birthed saints, monks, prophets, those who walked barefoot with the poor, who lived in service to the sacred. But Pisces also holds a shadow, and that shadow is illusion, blind faith, martyrdom, escapism, power disguised as holiness. Over time, what began as divine connection became dogma. What began as unity became division. Priests replaced prophets. Hierarchy replaced harmony. And salvation was sold as a product, one you had to earn, buy, or suffer for. The Age of Pisces taught us to look up, to look out, to wait. Wait for the Savior. Wait for the second coming. Wait for heaven, afterlife. And in the waiting, we forgot that heaven was a frequency, not a location. We forgot that the Christ wasn't a man, but a consciousness, a spark inside every soul, waiting to be remembered. Religion, in the Piscean era, served its sacred role. It kept the flame alive, even as it distorted the flame's source. But the age is shifting. The dream of Pisces is dissolving, and with it, our need for outer intermediaries. We are no longer looking for God in the sky. We are beginning to feel the divine in our breath. This is the turning of the wheel, and as one age bows to the next, what once held us must now release us. Because the soul is ready, and the stars have already moved on. The story of the Piscean Age is a story of surrender. For over 2,000 years, humanity has been swimming in a sea of symbols. Crosses, crescent moons, sacred texts, temples in the sky, each promising the same thing: salvation. If you believe, if you obey, if you sacrifice. Pisces is the sign of compassion, of mystical longing, but it is also the sign of martyrdom. And so, we were taught to suffer, to fast, to repent, to give up desire, to carry our cross quietly, in the hope that one day, if we were pure enough, we would be saved. Saved by someone holier, wiser, chosen. We didn't know yet that the one we were waiting for was already inside us. We were innocent, willing, our hearts open to something greater than ourselves. And so, the Piscean frequency wrapped us in sacred stories. The story of the Savior, the Lamb, the sacrifice. The story of the prophet who suffered, who bled, who gave everything, so we could be forgiven. This story, in its highest form, awakened humility. It inspired saints to feed the hungry, to love the leper, to kneel in the dust beside the forgotten. Faith bloomed. Devotion deepened. Entire cultures were built around holy days, sacred texts, and pilgrimage. But over time, the story was distorted. Salvation became a transaction, a reward for obedience, a currency of control. We were told we were born broken, that only through sacrifice could we be made whole, that to reach the divine, we had to go through someone else, a priest, a book, a hierarchy. And so we did what we were told. We knelt, we wept, we fasted, we feared, and we waited to be forgiven, waited to be saved, waited for the world to end so paradise could begin. But the truth is, paradise never left. It was never a reward. It was a state of being, a frequency of remembrance. And that remembrance cannot be earned. It can only be reclaimed. Pisces taught us the beauty of surrender, the value of devotion, the sacredness of belief. But it also taught us what happens when belief becomes bondage, when faith is stripped of inner knowing, when sacrifice is demanded but never understood. And now the tide is turning. We are waking from the dream of waiting. We are remembering that the sacred was never somewhere else. It was never locked behind gold doors. It was never sold in absolutes. It was never traded for obedience. It has always been here, in the breath, in the silence, in the stillness beneath your ribs. The age of sacrifice is ending, and what rises in its place is something only you can find, not by looking up, but by looking in. The shift had to happen now, not because the world was ready, but because the soul was. There comes a point in every cycle, in every age, when the container that once nourished begins to restrict. The ritual becomes routine. The meaning fades into repetition. The spark that once lit the fire flickers beneath layers of control, and the soul can feel it. It aches, it searches, it pulls against the walls of tradition, not out of disrespect, but out of deep remembrance. This is where we are now, standing at the threshold of a new age. Not because we forced it, but because the clock of the cosmos has turned. We are entering the Age of Aquarius, not as a trend, not as astrology's next chapter, but as a planetary initiation. Pisces ruled with water, emotions, surrender, mysticism. Its gift was faith, its shadow was illusion. Aquarius enters with air dash, vision, disruption, freedom. Its gift is truth, its shadow, detachment. The Piscean Age asked us to believe. The Aquarian Age demands we know. But knowing doesn't come from sermons. It doesn't come from obedience. It comes from direct experience, from within. That's why the structures are shaking, why the sacred is leaving the cathedrals and returning to the breath, why the institutions are cracking and the seekers are rising. We're not just watching the fall of religion, we're watching the rebirth of divinity inside the individual. This shift was always written, encoded in the precession of the equinoxes, whispered in the teachings of the Maya, the Vedas, the Hermetic scrolls. Each of them spoke of ages, epochs of consciousness that rise and fall like waves, and we are in the wave of remembering. That's why so many are leaving churches, temples, mosques, not out of hatred, not out of rebellion, but because they've outgrown the need to rent divinity from a building. They want to feel it in their own skin, in their own silence, in their own sovereign connection to the source within. The timing is not accidental. The world is in chaos, but the soul is in bloom. The collapse of belief is not the end of the sacred, it's the beginning of direct communion. You are not losing your path. You are being invited to claim it, not as a follower, but as a carrier of the flame. The age of blind faith had to end, because now you are ready to see with your own light. The age of blind authority is crumbling, not with violence, not with rage, but with the soft, unstoppable force of awakening. For centuries, spiritual power was centralized, contained, guarded by gatekeepers who stood between the seeker and the sacred. It was the age of popes, of priests, of imams, of gurus, those who claimed the voice of God, those who held the keys to forgiveness, those who decided who was worthy and who was not. At first, humanity needed it. We were children in consciousness. We needed maps. We needed guides. We needed elders to keep the flame alive in a world drowning in darkness. But over time, the guides forgot the way. The flame was hidden, hoarded, used not to illuminate but to control. Dogma replaced devotion. Obedience replaced awakening. Fear replaced faith. And slowly, humanity forgot how to hear the divine. Without an interpreter, we learned to trust the robes, not the resonance, the title, not the truth, the institution, not the intuition, and so we handed over our sovereignty. One prayer at a time, one confession at a time, one unquestioned ritual at a time, until the voice inside grew faint, until the spark dimmed beneath layers of guilt and shame and second-hand salvation. But the soul cannot stay silent forever. There comes a time in every great cycle when the old ways collapse, not because they are evil, but because they are exhausted. The time has come. The walls of authority are cracking. The sacred is leaving the temples. The seekers are remembering they were never meant to serve, but to shine. And this remembering is not blasphemy. It is birth. It is the natural next step in humanity's spiral of evolution. Because true spirituality has no middlemen. True connection requires no permission. The soul knows. The soul remembers. The soul doesn't need translation. It speaks in dreams, in intuition, in the electricity of a heart that suddenly knows without being told. This is the rise of sovereign consciousness, a consciousness that bows to no external master, that follows no empty ritual, that needs no validation to be sacred, a consciousness that sees God, not as an idea above, but as a living pulse within. And as this new frequency rises, the old authorities fall, not with swords, not with slogans, but with the quiet revolution of beings who no longer look outside for truth, because they have found the true temple, and it lives in their own awakening breath. Organized religion was not born of darkness. It was born of need. In the age of Pisces, humanity was immersed in the waters of feeling, faith, and deep inner longing. We were not yet ready to stand in our sovereignty. We were still learning to believe in what could not be seen. The frequency of Pisces is mystical, dreamy, devotional. It flows toward the sacred, but often loses itself in illusion. And so, to survive in this world of swirling uncertainty, we built structures, sacred architecture, sacred hierarchy, sacred systems. We built them to hold the mystery dash, to protect it, interpret it, contain it. Temples rose like mountains. Holy men stood at the gates. And for the first time in human history, the sacred became centralized. One God, one truth, one way. This was not evil. This was alignment with the Piscean blueprint, The people needed guidance, and the structures provided it. They gave form to the formless. They gave rules to the mysterious. They gave rhythm to the chaos. Organized religion helped humanity survive the Dark Ages. It preserved ancient wisdom, even when distorted. It encoded stories with universal truths. It provided spiritual literacy to billions who may never have had it otherwise. But with Pisces comes polarity. With mysticism comes manipulation. With devotion comes denial. Over time, what was once sacred architecture became spiritual control. The structures calcified. The mystery was replaced with mandates. The personal experience of God became property of the institution. Dogma replaced discovery. Obedience replaced openness. Salvation became a system dash, a box to be checked, a ritual to be performed, a hierarchy to be obeyed, and those who questioned it were cast out, silenced, burned, forgotten. But it's important to see this not through the eyes of anger, but through the lens of evolution. The Piscean Age wasn't wrong. It was sacred in its own way. It was a vessel. And like all vessels, its time has passed. Aquarius does not need walls. It does not need priests. It does not need permission. Its frequency is freedom. Its current is consciousness. Where Pisces asks for surrender, Aquarius asks for sovereignty. And that is why the old structures are trembling. Not because they were evil, but because they no longer match the frequency of the age we are entering. A frequency where the divine is no longer centralized, but decentralized, distributed, lived, not by the chosen few, but by everyone who dares to awaken. We often forget that humanity is still young, a species in its adolescence, learning how to feel, how to think, how to survive in a world it doesn't yet understand. And in those earlier stages, when the soul was raw and open, when fear outpaced wisdom, we needed something to hold us. We needed stories. We needed rules. We needed a parent. Religion became that parent, a cosmic authority figure who told us right from wrong, who gave us rituals to feel safe, who painted the universe in black and white. So we didn't drown in the grey. It gave meaning to suffering. It gave shape to death. It gave answers to questions. Our minds weren't yet ready to answer on their own. Who made the stars? Why do we feel pain? What happens after we die? Religion stepped in and offered comfort, not because we were weak, but because we were young. And when a child is scared, you don't hand them chaos. You hand them structure. You wrap the mystery in metaphor. You speak in parables, so the heart can begin to hear. And that's what religion did. It helped humanity walk. It steadied our shaking legs with commandments, with prayers, with community. It gave us language for the sacred when we had none. It taught us reverence. It taught us silence. It taught us how to honor something greater than ourselves. And though it sometimes ruled with fear, its deeper purpose was emotional. It reminded us we weren't alone, that we belonged to something eternal, that even in the darkest moments, we could reach toward the light. And for that, it should be honored, not condemned, not discarded with bitterness, but seen for what it truly was, a bridge, a shelter, a teacher, because what the child needs at 5 is not what they need at 25. And so too with the soul. We have grown. We have outgrown. The same stories that once soothed us now restrict us. The same doctrines that gave meaning now limit our expansion. This is not a betrayal of the past. It is the natural unfolding of evolution. We do not hate the cradle. When we learn to walk, We thank it, and we step beyond it. Religion served its emotional purpose. It held us through the night. It gave us songs to sing when we were afraid, and it lit the path with flickering candles until we could bear the full light ourselves. And now, that light is rising from within. The written word holds power. It carves symbols into silence. It gives form to the formless. And when those words are declared sacred, they shape entire civilizations. The sacred texts of the world, the Bible, the Quran, the Vedas, the Torah, the Tao Te Ching, have guided billions. They've whispered divine truths through poetry, proverbs, parables. They've offered comfort to the grieving, clarity to the lost, hope to the oppressed. These texts were never just books. They were portals, encoded wisdom passed down across centuries, carried by those who sought to preserve light in a world overwhelmed by shadow. But light, when claimed by men, can be turned into fire, and fire, when wielded without love, can become a weapon. Over time, the sacred pages were no longer read. For inner revelation, they were used to control, to divide, to dominate. Verses were selected, twisted, taken out of context to justify crusades, colonization, oppression of women, condemnation of the other. And so the same book, that teaches forgiveness, was used to spark war. The same scripture, that speaks of compassion, was used to shame and silence. Was the book the problem, or the hands that held it? We must understand. Many sacred texts were channeled through mystics, prophets, poets. Their words were wrapped in metaphor, coded in mysteries spoken in the language of their time and place. But when the mystical is interpreted literally, the door to the divine becomes a cage. The teachings of Christ were meant to free the heart, not imprison the body. The revelations of Muhammad were meant to awaken surrender, not demand uniformity. The Vedas are hymns to cosmic truth, not permission to divide by caste. The Tao speaks of flow, of balance, of harmony with the infinite. And yet, we've used these rivers of wisdom to draw lines in the sand. This is not an attack. This is an invitation to return to the essence of the texts, not the institutions that claim them, to read with the heart, not with the inherited fear of punishment, to let the symbols speak beyond the surface and rediscover the soul between the lines. Because the most sacred text has never been printed. It lives in your breath, your body, your memory. You are the living scroll, the scripture still being written. Let the words of the old world be honored, but not worshipped blindly. Let them be held with discernment, with reverence, with the knowing that truth, when real, does not require fear to be followed. There was a time when the teachings pointed inward, before temples became kingdoms, before doctrine replaced direct experience, before mysticism was branded as heresy. There were those who whispered the truth behind the veil. You are not separate from God. You are the divine, forgotten, and remembering. These were the Gnostics, seekers of gnosis, a Greek word meaning inner knowing. They did not follow blindly. They did not wait for intermediaries. They turned inward. They listened to the silence. And in that silence, they found God, not as a bearded ruler in the sky, but as the light within. Gnostic texts, once lost, now found, speak of a living Christ, not as a savior to be worshipped, but as a consciousness to be awakened. They say the kingdom of heaven is not in the afterlife, but within you. The Gospel of Thomas, buried for centuries, records Yeshua saying, "If you bring forth what is within you, What you bring forth will save you. These teachings were dangerous, not because they were false, but because they were free. They taught that salvation was not earned through obedience, but revealed through awareness. That you didn't need a priest to find the light. You needed stillness, courage, and the willingness to look within. They spoke of Sophia, divine wisdom as feminine. They spoke of the demiurge, the false god of control and illusion. They spoke of the soul's journey through realms of distortion, back to its true origin in divine light. And for that, they were hunted, burned, erased. Because power cannot tolerate a truth that cannot be owned. And yet, the wisdom survived in fragments, in whispers, in those who refused to forget, not only the Gnostics, but the Essenes, the Cathars, the mystics of Kabbalah, the Sufis in the desert, the yogis in Himalayan caves. All of them spoke in different tongues, but their message was the same: the sacred lives within you, and no outer system can take it from you. You do not need to be saved. You need only to remember. This is the lost thread, the pearl buried in centuries of sand. Not anti-God, not anti-spirit, but anti-intermediary, because the true divine doesn't demand worship, it invites reunion. And now, in this age, that buried truth is rising again, not in revolt, but in remembrance, not in flames, but in frequency. The forgotten gospel is not written in stone. It is etched in your cells, waiting for the day you would wake up and feel it pulsing again. And that day has come. The greatest threat to control is a soul that doesn't need permission. And for thousands of years, those in power knew this. They feared the mystics. They feared the prophets who didn't follow the script. They feared those who spoke with God, without needing a temple, because mysticism is untamed. It doesn't follow rules. It doesn't serve empire. It serves only truth. And truth cannot be tamed. Across time, across cultures, those who awakened direct connection to the divine were silenced. The witches, the seers, the Gnostics, the shamans, the healers, the ones who danced beneath the moon, who spoke in symbols, who found God in breath, in water, in flame. They didn't preach doctrine. They transmitted presence. They didn't repeat what others said. They spoke what they saw from within. And so, they were erased, burned, exiled, labeled heretic, labeled mad, because the mystic doesn't seek followers, and the mystic doesn't ask for power, but the mystic breaks the illusion that someone else must stand between you and the sacred. Mysticism is not a religion. It is a remembrance. It is the ancient knowing that your body is a temple, your breath is a prayer, and your life is the altar. But organized religion, rooted in structure, hierarchy, control, had no place for that. And so it buried the mystics, rewrote their stories, demonized their practices, declared war on the very paths that once led to the soul. The feminine was suppressed. The intuitive was shamed. The experiential was outlawed. And in its place, obedience was exalted. Obey the text. Obey the priest. Obey the rules. Do not question. Do not feel. Do not touch the mystery, not without supervision. But the mystery was never meant to be caged. It lives in every being. It speaks in silence, in symbols, in sensation. And now, it is rising again. You see it in the return to breathwork, to plant medicine, to energy healing, to ancient wisdom resurfacing in new skin. You feel it when you close your eyes, and the voice you hear doesn't come from scripture, but from within. Mysticism is not a trend. It is the oldest truth, and it is returning, not to destroy religion, but to awaken what it forgot, that God has never been far away, and you have never needed a map to find yourself home. The temples are not collapsing, they are moving inward. The Age of Aquarius is not the death of the sacred, it is the return of the sacred to where it always belonged, within. For thousands of years the priesthood lived outside of you, men in robes, women behind veils, institutions built of stone and fear, rules passed down as law. You were taught to kneel, to confess, to be cleansed by another's blessing, to wait for permission to touch the divine. But the sky has shifted, the wheel has turned, the waters of Pisces are receding. The air of Aquarius is rising, and with it, the inner priesthood awakens. You are no longer called to bow at altars of stone. You are called to kindle the altar of your own being. Your hands are sacred. Your voice is sacred. Your dreams are sacred. Your breath is a prayer. Your heartbeat is a hymn. There is no need for intermediaries now, because the portal to Source has always been carved in the marrow of your bones. The Age of Aquarius is the age of inner sovereignty, of direct communion, of self-initiation. It is the age where the sacred robes are woven from courage, and the sacred texts are written in the language of experience. You are the priest, you are the temple, you are the ritual, and this is not arrogance, it is remembrance. In ancient times, before the rise of dogma, every human was considered a bridge between earth and sky. The body was honored as a vessel of spirit. The dream was seen as a message from beyond. The intuitive knowing was treated as sacred counsel. We are not inventing something new. We are reawakening something ancient. The Age of Aquarius calls forth a humanity that no longer worships the sacred as something separate, but embodies it. A humanity that understands. Prayer is not recitation, it is resonance. Meditation is not escape, it is embodiment. Awakening is not climbing upward, it is remembering downward, into the body, into the breath, into the holy now. You are not a sinner to be saved. You are a spark remembering its flame. You are not unworthy of the sacred. You are the sacred becoming aware of itself. The Age of Aquarius demands nothing less. It asks for no allegiance but to truth. It requires no offering but authenticity. It demands no creed but the one written in the silent courage of your own heart. The priests and temples still crumble, but the true sanctuary is rising in you, and the sacred is not asking you to worship anymore. It is asking you to awaken. The signs are everywhere. If you listen, not with your ears, but with your soul, you will feel it. The collapse of external salvation is not coming. It has already begun. Across every continent, cathedrals stand emptier. The pews are half filled. The prayers echo in hollow chambers, once vibrating with certainty. People are leaving. Not because they have lost faith, but because their faith has outgrown the walls. The numbers tell the story. Studies show a steady decline in religious affiliation across generations, especially among the young. Those born into a world that no longer fits the old molds. They are not turning their backs on the sacred. They are turning their faces toward it, without the need for permission. There is a quiet revolution unfolding, in living rooms, in forests, in meditation circles under open skies. Spirituality is moving from doctrine to direct experience, from pulpits to presence. People are no longer content to be told what is sacred. They are seeking to feel it, to know it, to embody it. The rise of alternative spiritual practices is not an accident. Breathwork, energy healing, plant medicine journeys, silent retreats, mystical exploration without boundaries, all of it is the soul remembering what institutions tried to mediate, that the divine was never locked away in one book, one building, one body of authority. It breathes in every living thing. It pulses through every cell. It sings from every star. The old models taught, you are separate, you are fallen, you must be saved. But the new awareness rising says, you are connected, you are luminous, you are already whole. This is why so many feel restless in the old systems. It's not rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's evolution. It's the soul recognizing that the external scaffolding, once needed, is now a prison. And prisons, no matter how gilded, cannot contain a soul meant to fly. We see the shift in the rise of interfaith dialogue, the willingness to find the golden threads between traditions, instead of fighting over the colors of the robes. We see it in the questions being asked, questions once forbidden. What if the divine is bigger than one name? What if salvation is not a reward, but a remembering? And we see it in the silent moments, when a seeker closes their eyes, breathes deeply, and meets something sacred, without anyone standing in between. This is not the death of spirituality. It is its rebirth, not as a hierarchy, but as a living, breathing, sovereign communion. The temples outside may crumble, the doctrines may fall into dust, but the light is only beginning to rise. And this time, it rises from within. There is a new kind of awakening stirring in the soul of humanity. It does not ask for permission. It does not wait for approval. It does not bow to titles, robes, or ancient names. It rises from within, uncontainable, unmediated, alive. This is the rise of spiritual individualism, the age of direct experience, the birth of a consciousness that refuses to be handed salvation like a currency. You are no longer looking for a savior. You are becoming your own bridge to the sacred, not out of arrogance, but out of remembrance. Spiritual individualism is not selfishness. It is sovereignty. It is the realization that truth is not mass-produced. It is revealed one heart at a time. And so, millions are waking up from the inherited creeds, the memorized prayers, the rituals performed without presence. They are asking deeper questions. Who told me what to believe? Who benefits when I surrender my knowing? What if the sacred is not something I seek, but something I already am? This awakening is not loud. It is not broadcasted from pulpits. It is quiet, intimate, personal. It happens in moments. A breath beneath the stars, a dream that opens a door, a sudden knowing that the universe is not judging, but singing within you. This shift terrifies the old structures because it cannot be organized. It cannot be taxed. It cannot be contained. The rise of spiritual individualism means that every human becomes a living temple. Every body becomes a sanctuary. Every soul becomes a channel for divine expression. And this requires a new kind of courage. The courage to listen to your own resonance. The courage to walk alone when necessary. The courage to trust that your inner compass is more sacred than any inherited map. It also requires discernment, because freedom without wisdom can become confusion. Spiritual individualism demands maturity. The maturity to seek not just what feels good, but what rings true in the deepest chambers of your being. It asks you to become both the student and the teacher, the seeker and the guide, the question and the answer. No longer outsourcing your divinity, no longer blaming others for your disconnection, no longer waiting for someone to anoint you worthy. You are already anointed by existence itself. The rise of spiritual individualism is not the death of community. It is its rebirth, a new kind of gathering, where beings meet not as followers, but as reflections of the same infinite source, not bound by dogma, but united by resonance. The sacred circle has widened, and at its center is the light within you. The new priesthood is not outside. It is being built in every awakened soul who dares to walk their own path into the mystery. And now, the mystery is calling you deeper. There is a difference, a sacred difference, between faith and obedience. One is born of inner knowing, the other from fear. Faith says, I feel the truth alive inside me. Obedience says, I follow because I was told to. And for too long, humanity has been trained in obedience, not discernment. We were taught to trust the voice outside us, more than the whisper within, to fear questioning, to worship authority, to mistake submission for devotion. But the Age of Aquarius does not honor blind obedience. It honors conscious discernment. It asks the soul to awaken its own compass, to weigh, to feel, to sense what resonates and what does not. Discernment is the sacred art of listening. Without surrendering your sovereignty, it is not rebellion for rebellion's sake. It is the quiet courage to ask, does this align with my deepest knowing? Or am I agreeing out of fear, out of habit, out of inherited guilt? Blind obedience is easy. It requires no inner work, no reflection, no confrontation with complexity. Just follow the rules. Just echo the creeds. Just repeat what you were told. Discernment is harder. It requires sitting in the uncomfortable spaces. It demands stillness when you crave answers. It asks you to hold the tension between the familiar and the true. And sometimes, it means walking alone until resonance finds you again. The mystics knew this. They taught that wisdom is not memorized, it is embodied. That truth is not delivered by decree. It unfolds through direct experience. That God is not a doctrine to accept blindly, but a presence to encounter directly. In this new age, discernment is not optional, it is survival. Because there will be many voices, many new temples, many who rise claiming new truths, and the soul must learn to feel deeply what vibrates with life and what smells of decay. Blind obedience leads to stagnation, discernment leads to sovereignty, and sovereignty leads to communion with the source that needs no intermediaries, no validation, no manipulation. The new seeker does not abandon all teachings, but neither do they swallow them whole. They sip, they taste, they sit with the sacred fire and let it burn away what is false, until only the golden bones of truth remain. This is the path we are stepping onto now. The path where no one can walk for you, no text can save you, no priest can absolve you. Only your own clear seeing, only your own steady heart. Discernment is not easy, but it is liberation. And every soul, whether they know it yet or not, is being called to remember how to see, with the eyes of the Spirit, once again. Freedom is a word that stirs the soul, but few truly understand what it asks of us. Spiritual freedom is not the absence of structure. It is the presence of conscious choice. It is not running wild without guidance. It is standing so deeply rooted in your own center that no storm can pull you from yourself. Freedom is not abandonment. It is embodiment. It does not mean rejecting every teaching, every tradition, every thread of wisdom. It means learning to weave your own tapestry. From the truths that resonate in the marrow of your being, freedom is not shouting, "I will follow no one." It is whispering, "I will walk with those who awaken my soul, but I will never hand them my compass." It means sitting in silence, without needing someone to fill it. It means choosing devotion, not because you are commanded, but because your spirit naturally bows to what it recognizes as real. It means praying dash, not out of fear of punishment, but because your heart aches with gratitude for being alive in this sacred mystery. True spiritual freedom looks like a soul that listens deeply, moves slowly, loves fiercely, and dares to trust its own connection to the infinite. It looks like discernment without cynicism, open-heartedness without naivety, curiosity without desperation. It means you can sit at any altar, a cathedral, a forest, a sunrise, a still lake, and feel equally at home, because you know the sacred is not in the place, it is in the presence you bring to it. It means you are no longer waiting for approval, no longer bargaining for belonging, no longer measuring your worth by how well you fit into someone else's definition of holy. You are holy because you exist, because you breathe, because you are the living expression of Source unfolding itself. This is not a path without challenges. Freedom demands responsibility. It demands self-inquiry. It demands the humility to admit when we are lost and the courage to find our way back. Not by crawling to an authority figure, but by reigniting our own inner flame. It means you carry your own light, even when the road ahead is dark, even when you walk alone. And it means, too, that you recognize the light in others, not as something to worship, but as something to honor, something that reflects the same flame burning within you. True spiritual freedom is not anarchy. It is artistry, the art of shaping your life as a living prayer, a silent hymn to the mystery that lives and breathes through all things. The art of remembering you were never separate, and the sacred was never somewhere else. It was always in you. The structures are crumbling, not just in temples, but across the very fabric of human civilization. And the quiet architect behind this shift is technology. What once took centuries to change now shifts in days. What once was guarded by gatekeepers now flows freely to anyone with a heartbeat and a connection. The age of Aquarius is the age of air, of information, of innovation. And it is no accident that in this age, decentralization is emerging as the new foundation. Decentralized finance, decentralized knowledge, decentralized communities, decentralized spirituality. The pyramid is falling, the circle is returning. Where once a single voice dictated truth from the top, now 1,000 voices rise in chorus, each carrying a spark of knowing, each becoming a node in the living network of awakening. Technology is not the enemy of the sacred. It is a mirror, a reflection of the deeper shift unfolding within consciousness. Blockchain is not just financial revolution. It is a symbolic return to transparency, a refusal to allow secrets and corruption to hide behind veils of authority. Artificial intelligence is not just a tool. It is a catalyst forcing humanity to ask, what makes us truly conscious? What cannot be replicated, simulated, or coded? The internet itself is a web of minds, a global nervous system connecting us in ways the ancients could only dream of. And yes, it is messy, it is chaotic, it is overwhelming at times, but chaos is the first breath of a new order. An order not built on kings and priests, but on sovereign souls, choosing to connect, to create, to collaborate. And so the spiritual hierarchies are breaking too. No longer must you sit at the feet of a single guru. No longer must you wait for a blessing from a throne. No longer must you accept a truth because it was handed down by lineage alone. You can listen, you can learn, you can honor the wisdom of those who came before. But your compass, your resonance, your direct connection must lead the way now. Because the new temple is not built with stone. It is built with consciousness, with shared intention, with the living weave of sovereign beings, choosing to awaken side by side. The Aquarian frequency does not destroy the sacred. It decentralizes it. It democratizes it. It returns it to the hands of the many, not the control of the few. And with this freedom comes responsibility to discern, to align, to honor the sacred in every connection, every creation, every choice. The old spiritual empires are fading, but the light they try to own is now igniting in 1,000 hearts, 1,000 minds, 1,000 hands ready to shape a new world. The age of the middleman is ending, and the age of the awakened human has just begun. Something extraordinary is happening. Beneath the chaos, beneath the noise, beneath the rubble of collapsing systems, a new kind of connection is being born. Not through forced allegiance, not through blind obedience, but through resonance, through vibration, through the subtle, magnetic pull of awakened souls, finding each other across oceans, across borders, across time. This is the rise of collective consciousness, a tapestry of light woven not by command, but by a remembrance. In the old world, connection was dictated. You belonged to a church because your ancestors did. You prayed to a god because your parents did. You knelt at an altar because your village built it before you were born. Connection was inherited, but rarely questioned, rarely chosen. Now, connection is being rebuilt through choice. Every soul who awakens, every heart that remembers its own sacredness, adds a thread to the living network of human evolution. You feel it when you speak to a stranger, and their words echo something you've been feeling in the deepest parts of yourself. You feel it when you sit in a circle of seekers. No common dogma, no common label, only the shared pulse of something ancient. Awakening in the room. You feel it when you close your eyes and realize you are not alone in your prayer, even if no one taught you how to pray. The sacred is rebuilding itself, not as a single tower, but as a mycelial web, an invisible root system of consciousness, connecting hearts across the planet. This is not organized religion. It is organic resonance. It is not controlled from the top. It grows from the center of each being, and the center is infinite. This collective consciousness is not a hive mind. It does not erase individuality. It amplifies it. It allows every soul to shine uniquely, while still recognizing the unity behind all diversity. It is the sacred paradox. You are completely unique and completely connected. You are a singular frequency in an eternal symphony. And in this symphony, no single note is more important than another. No temple is more holy than another. No path is more legitimate than another. What matters now is alignment, resonance, the willingness to embody your truth fully, and to recognize the sacred in the truth of others. Collective consciousness does not require everyone to believe the same thing. It requires everyone to awaken to the same source within themselves. And through that awakening, a new kind of connection is formed, a sacred connection, not mediated by fear, but magnetized by love. The temples of the old world crumble, but a greater temple is being built, woven from human hearts, lit by human souls, singing the same silent song of remembrance. You are part of this weaving. Every breath, every awakening, every act of courage adds to the great design, and the design is alive. You were never cut off. You were never abandoned. You were never less divine than the saints, the prophets, the masters. You have always carried within you the golden thread, the direct line to source, the living river of energy that flows from the infinite into form and back again. But for generations, you were taught to forget. You were told you needed permission. You were told you needed rituals, sacrifices, intercessors, mediators. You were told that the divine was distant, a king to be appeased, a deity to be feared, a mystery too vast for your humble heart. And so you reached outward. You bowed. You begged. You built temples of stone, while forgetting the temple of flesh and light beating inside your own chest. But no matter how thick the walls became, no matter how many layers of shame were laid upon your soul, the thread never broke. It could not break, because it was never woven by man. It was woven by existence itself. And now, as the old structures fall, as the veils grow thin, you are beginning to feel it again. The living pulse, the sacred current, the knowing without explanation. You do not need a priest to bless you. You are already blessed by your very breath. You do not need a book to authorize your belonging. You belong because you are. You do not need to climb a ladder to heaven. You are the bridge between heaven and earth. Reclaiming direct access to source energy is not about learning something new. It is about remembering what you have always known beneath the noise. It is about quieting the mind until the silent voice within speaks again. It is about trusting the way your heart expands when it encounters real truth. It is about listening to the wisdom of your body, the tingling on your skin, the goosebumps when something resonates, the tears that rise when your soul recognizes home. It is about breathing with awareness, walking with presence, touching the earth and feeling the infinite hum beneath your feet. You are not disconnected. You are distracted. And the Age of Aquarius is the great undistracting. It is the peeling away of all the layers that kept you searching outside yourself. It is the great homecoming to the source that was never separate from you. You are the conduit. You are the temple. You are the prayer. And every time you choose presence over fear, truth over obedience, inner knowing over external noise, you strengthen that thread until it becomes an unbreakable bridge of light, a bridge no institution can claim, no dogma can gatekeep, no fear can sever. The way home has always been inside you, and now you are beginning to walk it. Community is not ending, it is evolving. In the old age, we gathered in temples, we sat in pews, we faced a single voice, reciting a single truth, under a roof built to contain the sacred. Belonging meant sameness. It meant dressing alike, believing alike, confessing the same creed. You were accepted. If you agreed, you were holy. If you obeyed, you were safe. If you didn't ask too many questions. But the Age of Aquarius carries a different frequency. It does not ask for obedience. It asks for authenticity. It does not seek uniformity. It thrives in diversity. And so, community is changing. No longer a structure built to enforce belief, but a space held to honor truth. No longer a stage for the few, but a circle for the many. In this new era, community will look less like institutions and more like ecosystems, fluid, decentralized, organic, alive. It may gather in yoga studios, but also in forests. It may rise through online circles, but still hold the same depth as sacred fire gatherings. What binds it is not dogma, but resonance. People will come together, not because they must, but because their frequencies harmonize. They will not need a shared belief system, but a shared commitment to presence, to growth, to truth. In the Piscean Age, community was about protection, safety through structure, security through shared identity. But Aquarius brings expansion. It asks us to let go of labels and meet each other soul to soul. In this age, your spiritual family may not come from your bloodline, your culture, or your religion. They will find you through vibration. You will know them, not by what they say, but by how your heart opens in their presence. They will not tell you what to think. They will reflect what you already know. They will not demand loyalty. They will offer alignment, and when the frequency shifts, they will let you go with love, not judgment. This is not the end of gathering. It is the end of gathering around false light. The new community gathers around presence, around remembering, around the shared fire that burns within every awakening soul. And yes, it may be smaller at first, more intimate, more raw, but it will be real. And real is what the soul has always longed for. We do not need temples built of stone. We need circles built of light. We do not need preachers. We need witnesses. We need mirrors. We need companions who see us dash and call forth the sacred we are only beginning to see in ourselves. This is the community of the Aquarian Age. Not ruled, not bound, but chosen. Moment by moment, soul by soul. And it will be more powerful than anything we've known before. The temple has never been lost. We simply forgot where to look. In the old world, the sacred was housed in stone. Domes kissed the sky. Chants echoed through marble halls. Incense rose like prayer through vaulted ceilings. And for a time, it was enough. But the earth has turned. The stars have shifted. And now the sacred calls us, not to return to the old temples, but to rediscover the ones that were always around us and within us. The new temples have no doors, no rules, no signs, but you will feel them. You will feel them in the trees, when the wind moves like breath through their branches, and your body suddenly remembers what stillness feels like. You will feel them in the ocean, when the waves match the rhythm of your heartbeat, and something ancient inside you softens. You will feel them in silence, not the silence of emptiness, but the full silence that hums beneath all noise. The silence where God does not speak with words, but with presence. You will feel them in the quantum field, the invisible web connecting all life, where thought becomes vibration, where the observer shapes the reality, where every intention sent with love ripples into the infinite, and you will feel them most deeply, in the heart, not the heart of sentiment, but the heart as portal, the electromagnetic temple within your chest, stronger than the mind, more ancient than the bones. It is here that the divine speaks clearest, not through scripture, but through sensation, not through ritual, but through resonance. You may find yourself walking in nature and feeling overcome, tears rising for no reason, an ache of memory, as if your soul remembers that it once lived in constant communion, because it did, and it will again. The new temple does not require robes. It does not require translation. It does not require anything but your full presence. Sit on the earth. Feel the weight of your body. Breathe. Feel the heartbeat that is yours, but also not yours. And in that stillness, you will touch the altar that never closed its gates. You will not need to prove your worth. You will not need to recite belief. You will not need to ask for forgiveness. You will simply be. And that will be enough. Because the divine does not live in buildings. It lives in frequency, in coherence, in the unshakable union between your breath and the breath of the cosmos. This is the temple now, the forest, the silence, the field, the heart. And once you feel it, you will carry it with you, wherever you go, because the sacred was never somewhere else. It has always been here, waiting for you to come home. Some wounds are not visible. They don't bleed. They don't bruise. But they shape everything. Religious trauma is one of those wounds. It is the ache left behind. When you were told your body was shameful. When you were taught your intuition was dangerous. When your curiosity was met with silence, or worse, with punishment. It's the confusion of loving something sacred, but being afraid of it at the same time. The fear of questioning, the guilt of leaving, the invisible weight of trying to unlearn what was planted in you before you had words to protect yourself. Many carry it in silence. It shows up in the hesitation to trust your own voice, in the fear that joy must be paid for, in the unconscious belief that suffering is more holy than peace. And it's okay. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are healing. And healing does not mean forgetting. It means remembering yourself. Beneath the layers of distortion, it means peeling back the beliefs that were never yours to begin with. It means meeting the child inside you, who was told that divinity lived only in books, in buildings, in men, and whispering back to them, I found it. It lives in us. Spiritual self-sovereignty is not a concept. It is medicine. It is what happens when you take back the keys to your own temple, when you realize that your relationship with the divine does not require approval, does not require punishment, does not require shame. It requires presence, truth, and a willingness to trust yourself again. You may have to rebuild the inner altar from the ground up. Sweep away the debris of doctrine. Let the dust of old guilt settle. Breathe. You may need to reclaim sacred words that were once used to control you. Words like prayer, grace, God. You don't have to reject them. You can redefine them. You can make them yours. Because the divine is not offended by your healing. The divine is in your healing. It rejoices when you return to yourself. When you stop outsourcing your worth, when you stop handing your light to someone else to manage. And yes, you may grieve. You may grieve the community you lost, the innocence, the longing for something pure. That became tainted along the way. But grief is holy too. Let it wash through you. Let it cleanse what no longer serves. Let it soften the places still holding fear. And when the tears clear, what remains is you, unburdened, unbound, unashamed, you in full communion with the divine, as it truly is and as it always was. Not above you, not outside you, but rising from within. Long before modern religion, long before cathedrals and creeds, there were the mystery schools, hidden in caves, temples, deserts, and mountains. They preserved the ancient path, the path of direct knowledge, not belief, not blind worship, but gnosis, experience, the soul's intimate dance with the infinite. These schools were never meant for the masses. They weren't designed to control. They were created to initiate, to awaken the deeper memory within those who were ready to see beyond the veil. In Egypt, The initiates walked the temples of Karnak and Luxor, where sacred geometry mirrored the structure of the cosmos, and every pillar, every symbol, every silence was part of a greater language only the soul could fully understand. In Greece, the Eleusinian mysteries spoke in metaphor of descent and return, death and rebirth, the journey of Persephone into the underworld, and her emergence transformed. In India, the yogic sciences were passed from teacher to student through breath, mantra, and direct energetic transmission. No dogma, no institution, only frequency. In the pre-Columbian Americas, shamans walked between worlds, not to control nature, but to listen to it, to honor the cycles, to bring back wisdom from the unseen realms. In every part of the ancient world, those who carried the real keys knew this one truth: the divine lives within. And to find it, you must descend. You must unlearn. You must be willing to die to who you thought you were. These teachings were never designed to be universal. They were never meant to build empires. They were meant to activate, to call forth the soul's own knowing, to remind you that you are not here to follow, but to remember. And now, as the Age of Aquarius opens its gates, those ancient teachings stir once more. Not in old languages, but in dreams, in synchronicities, in a sudden pull toward books you've never read, symbols you've never studied, but somehow always known, because the mystery schools did not teach dogma. They transmitted energy. They encoded their wisdom in architecture, myth, movement, and sound, so it would survive. Long after the temples fell, it was never about information. It was about transformation. And that transformation was never meant to stay hidden forever. They knew, they always knew, there would come a time when the veils would thin, when the soul of humanity would reach a threshold, when the old structures would collapse, and the seekers would begin to hear again. That time is now. You are not just a witness to prophecy, you are part of its unfolding. The mysteries were never lost. They were waiting for you to remember. There was a time when we needed teachers, when the soul was just beginning to open, when the veil between worlds was thick, and we could barely hear the voice inside us whispering, "You are divine." We needed someone to hold the lantern, to walk ahead, to show us that the path existed. And many of those teachers were true, not perfect, but true. They did not demand worship. They did not crave followers. They came to awaken, not to rule. But over time, we gave them more than reverence. We gave them our power. We mistook the messenger for the message. We turned wisdom into hierarchy. We placed the teacher on a pedestal, and in doing so, we forgot the temple within. The guru became a god, and the student became small. But that age is ending, not because teachers are no longer needed, but because their role is evolving. In the Age of Aquarius, the guru does not disappear. The guru dissolves into the mirror. Every soul becomes a reflection. Every soul becomes a teacher, not through mastery, but through presence. You begin to learn from conversations, from moments, from nature, from silence, from joy, from loss. You begin to notice that the universe is always teaching, not just through books or lineages, but through your own experience, your own body, your own breath. And when you meet someone wise, you no longer bow. You meet them eye to eye, heart to heart. You thank them, not because they saved you, but because they reminded you of what you had forgotten. You carry the teaching now. You hold the lantern, and as you walk, you light the path, not for followers, but for fellow travelers. This is not ego, this is evolution. To become your own teacher means to stop outsourcing your truth. It means listening to the inner resonance more than the outer noise. It means recognizing that the same light that moved through saints, sages, and mystics moves through you. No more waiting for blessings. No more begging for answers. No more seeking someone to hand you what your soul was born to remember. You are not here to repeat someone else's path. You are here to walk your own, with eyes wide open, heart fully engaged, spirit fully alive. This is the return of sacred maturity, where wisdom is not something bestowed, but something revealed from within. The guru may still exist, but now they live inside you, and their voice sounds exactly like yours. Not everything that glows is gold. Not every spiritual teaching leads to liberation. Not every radiant face reflects truth. In the absence of old religion, something new rushed in. Crystals, cards, energy codes, galactic channelings, light language, and endless waves of love and light promises that sometimes feel more like sugar than substance. The Age of Aquarius is here, but it does not come without shadows. Even in awakening, there are traps. Traps that sound like empowerment, but feel like bypass. Traps that promise healing, but deliver dependency. Traps that sell ascension as an escape from embodiment. This is not an attack on the mystical. It's a call to discernment, because true spiritual alignment does not require aesthetics, it requires embodiment. True alignment doesn't always feel euphoric. Sometimes it feels like a breakdown, like grief, like facing the very parts of yourself you try to bypass with positive vibes only. Discernment is the compass, not judgment, not cynicism, but sober, clear seeing. Ask yourself, does this teaching lead me deeper into my own knowing? Or does it ask me to rely on someone else's version of truth? Does it connect me to my body? Or does it seduce me into floating above it? Does it hold space for complexity, shadow, and depth? Or does it deny anything that doesn't feel high vibrational? Because light is not afraid of the dark. Real awakening includes descent. Real healing includes discomfort. And alignment isn't always aesthetic. It's not always perfect postures and softly spoken mantras. Sometimes it's messy, raw, silent, profoundly ordinary. You may find yourself feeling more human than ever. But that is where the sacred truly begins. Don't let the new age replace the old control with something prettier but equally hollow. You don't need to buy 10 courses to remember who you are. You don't need constant upgrades to prove you're evolving. The most powerful transformation often happens in stillness, in slowness, in the quiet choice to trust your own frequency over the noise. Real alignment hums. It doesn't shout. It steadies. It grounds. It simplifies. You feel more whole, not more fragmented, more connected, not more dependent. This is the new discernment, a sacred maturity, to see what uplifts and what distracts, what heals and what sells. You are not here to follow trends. You are here to embody truth. And truth doesn't sparkle on demand. It radiates quietly from the center of your being. Freedom is not the final destination. It is the beginning of responsibility. Spiritual freedom sounds beautiful, and it is, but it is also weighty, sacred, unavoidable once chosen. Because once you reclaim your sovereignty, there's no one left to blame. No system, no guru, no doctrine to hide behind. You become the authority, you become the guardian, you become the one who must now hold the flame you once asked others to tend for you. This is not punishment, it is empowerment. But make no mistake, freedom requires discipline, not the discipline of rigid rules, but of radical presence, of deep listening, of integrity, when no one is watching. In the old world, you could rely on commandments, you could follow the path already carved. But now, you are carving it yourself. Every step, every choice shaping the reality you walk into. Spiritual freedom asks you to feel everything, to stop outsourcing your intuition, to take responsibility for your energy, your healing, your creation. It means sitting with your triggers instead of projecting them. It means slowing down instead of escaping forward. It means owning your shadow without shame and your light without ego. There's no longer a checklist to prove your worth, no hierarchy to climb, no external reward for being good. The reward is your own alignment, your own expansion, your own soul, looking at itself in the mirror and seeing someone who chose truth over comfort. Freedom is not detachment, it is devotion to something deeper than belief, something wider than ritual. It is devotion to what is real, what is alive, what moves through you when the world goes silent. In this space, you are not just a seeker, you are a steward of your gifts, of your impact, of the sacred fire you now carry, not as a borrowed flame, but as a living source within. This path will ask everything of you, but it will never ask you to be anyone but yourself. That's the paradox. The freer you become, the more reverence you must bring, not to a system, but to your soul, not to a book, but to your body, not to a doctrine, but to the delicate mystery of being fully human and fully divine at once. Spiritual freedom is not chaos, it is conscious choice. It is inner leadership. It is remembering that no one is coming to save you, because you are already the one you've been waiting for. And now you walk forward, not as a follower, not as a rebel, but as a keeper of the flame, a flame that only you can tend. You were never meant to worship from a distance. You were meant to remember that the sacred lives within you, not as a metaphor, not as a poetic idea, but as a literal living truth. You are the temple, not in theory, but in the design of your very being. Your breath is incense. Your heartbeat is the drumbeat of creation. Your spine is the sacred pillar through which heaven and earth unite. Your eyes, two windows into eternity. Your skin, a veil so thin you can feel spirit move beneath it. When you grow still enough to listen, the temples of stone may still inspire us, but they were always reflections, architectural echoes of something far more eternal. You, the ancients knew this. In Egypt, the temple was built in proportion to the human body, each chamber aligned with energy centers. Each corridor represented an initiation dash, not into a religion, but into remembrance. The yogis spoke of the body as a vessel of divine energy, a layered field of light holding lifetimes of wisdom, and the potential to awaken the infinite. In Taoism, the body is treated as a microcosm of the universe, a place to cultivate harmony with the Tao, the source behind all things. And now, science too begins to catch up. We know the heart emits an electromagnetic field, stronger than that of the brain. We know consciousness can affect matter. We know the body is more than biology. It is frequency, it is intelligence, it is memory. This body, your body, is not a mistake. It is not unworthy. It is not something to escape. On your way to the divine, it is the divine, wrapped in skin. And when you return to it, not as a burden, but as a sacred space, everything changes. You begin to walk differently, not in shame, but in presence. You begin to breathe with awareness. You begin to listen to the aches, the pulses, the intuitions, speaking through sensation instead of doctrine. You begin to feel the sacred, not just during ritual, but in every moment of aliveness. Washing your hands becomes a purification. Eating becomes communion. Touch becomes blessing. You are the sanctuary now, not because someone said so, but because you feel it in your bones. There is no separation left to bridge, no permission left to seek. You are where the divine meets itself. You are the altar. You are the flame. And when you finally stand in that truth, you will not need to be told you are holy. You will simply know. The Age of Aquarius is not something we wait for. It is something we become. It does not arrive like a storm. It arrives through us, through our choices, our frequency, our daily way of being. This is the great shift. Not into a timeline outside of ourselves, but into a consciousness that we carry, amplify, and embody. To anchor the Aquarian energy is to live as if the new world is already here, because in you it is. It begins with alignment, not perfection, but honesty, not constant elevation, but steady integration. The Aquarian current moves fast. It's electrical, innovative, disruptive, but it is also subtle. It speaks in intuition, in sudden downloads, in that soft inner pulse that says, this way, not that. To anchor it, you must learn to listen, to pause, to feel what is real and what is residue, to stay present when distraction pulls at your nervous system, to choose depth over noise. This is not about adopting new labels. It's about shedding the ones that never fit. It's about standing in the rawness of who you are, without apology, without the need to be understood. You begin by honoring your own frequency, not by fixing yourself, not by striving to be more spiritual, but by trusting that your truth, your full embodied truth, is sacred. Anchoring the new energy means learning to co-create with life. It means showing up with integrity. It means aligning your inner world with your outer action. It means creating spaces where others feel safe to be real, to awaken, to be seen without judgment. It means saying no to what drains you and saying yes to what expands you. Even if it scares you, you anchor it in your voice. When you speak from clarity, not reaction, you anchor it in your presence. When you sit with someone and really listen, not to fix, but to witness, you anchor it in your silence. When you stop needing to prove, to perform, to be anything other than who you are. The Aquarian frequency is not reserved for mystics or sages. It is for the mother, who raises her children with presence, the artist, who paints what the soul cannot say, the builder, who constructs from love, the leader, who leads from within. Every act rooted in awareness becomes a node of light. Every choice made in resonance ripples into the collective. You don't have to move mountains. You only have to move from truth. You don't have to preach. You only have to embody. And as you do, you become the bridge between ages, between worlds, between the dream we were given and the one we are finally ready. We were taught to bow, to kneel before altars, to light candles for someone else's holiness, to look up instead of within, We were taught to worship, to speak to the divine as something distant, separate, above us, to hope that maybe, if we were good enough, pure enough, small enough, the sacred would reach down and bless us. But this time is different. This age is different. The light is no longer descending from above. It is rising from within. This is the end of outer worship and the beginning of inner illumination. Not because the divine has disappeared from the sky, but because the temple of heaven has been rediscovered in your own being. Worship, in its purest form, was always about connection. Not control, not obedience, but communion. Somewhere along the way, we replaced connection with performance. We measured holiness by posture, by recited words, by external acts. But the soul doesn't respond to performance. It responds to presence. And presence lives here, in your breath, in your belly, in the subtle flicker of awareness, when you realize that everything you once prayed to already lives in you. The fire of the mystics was never about worship. It was about becoming. Illumination is not granted. It is revealed dash. As you peel back the layers of doubt, shame, and second-hand belief, it is the quiet light that glows when you tell the truth, the spark that rises when you sit in silence and feel the pulse of your own divinity without needing it to be proven. You do not need to worship a flame that already burns in your chest. You need only to tend it, to breathe with it, to live by it. This is not arrogance. This is intimacy. The divine does not want your worship. It wants your remembrance. It wants your full aliveness, your eyes open, your feet grounded, your hands steady with purpose. In this age, prayer is not begging, it is becoming. Meditation is not escape, it is return. Ritual is not performance, it is presence. And illumination is not gifted from the outside, it is claimed from within. The shift has already begun. People are leaving the pews, but they are lighting candles in their kitchens. They are walking through forests, with reverence in every step. They are breathing in silence and calling it church, because they have remembered, not a doctrine, but a frequency, not a theology, but a flame. And once that flame is lit, it cannot be dimmed. You are not here to worship light. You are here to become it. The fall of religion is not the fall of God. It is the fall of the walls we built around God, the dissolution of the systems that tried to define the infinite, that tried to package the unnameable, that tried to turn the mystery into a manual. We are not witnessing the death of the sacred. We are witnessing its liberation, because God was never the building. God was never the doctrine. God was never the human voice. That claimed to speak for eternity. God was never confined to language, to robes, to a list of rules. God is not threatened by the end of religion. God is revealed through it. The divine does not crumble. When a church is abandoned, it expands, it moves into the hearts of those who were never able to find themselves in the hierarchy. It rises in the ones who walked away but never stopped seeking, who stopped repeating the prayers but never stopped listening. The old systems told us, without religion, you will be lost. Without religion, you will have no meaning. Without religion, you will be empty. But meaning is not given, it is created. Through lived experience, through presence, through the quiet moments, when you touch the divine without needing to explain it. There are still those who fear this shift. They think that to release religion is to betray God. But perhaps the greater betrayal was believing that God was ever something we could own. This is not about throwing away the sacred. This is about finding it again, in its raw, original form. Not behind stained glass, but behind your eyes. Not beneath cathedral domes, but beneath your ribs. God is not disappearing. God is decentralizing. And in that decentralization, the sacred returns to the many, to the quiet ones, to the doubters, to the wanderers who walked away, not out of arrogance, but out of integrity. And now they are returning, not to the old systems, but to themselves, to the sky, to the earth, to the silence inside, that never forgot how to pray. This is not the end of reverence. This is the beginning of a new kind, a reverence without hierarchy, without fear, without pretense, a reverence that does not require that you call it anything, only that you feel it, live it, breathe it. Religion may fade, but the divine remains, always, everywhere, in all things, and most powerfully, in you. If this message stirred something in you, share it, speak it, live it. Because this world doesn't need more believers. It needs more awakened beings, living their truth. Subscribe for more sacred transmissions. Share this with someone who's ready to remember. And in the comments below, tell us what part of you is beginning to rise. Until next time, walk gently, but carry your light boldly. We'll see you on the hidden voyage. Soul Whisper and Soul Creator. If this journey moves something in you, don't let it end in silence. Let it echo. Share it with someone still afraid to speak of death, still avoiding the mirror, still pretending time is infinite. Let this video be the hand you extend, the torch you pass, the doorway they didn't know they were seeking. Leave a comment, not just to speak, but to witness. What part of you is beginning to awaken? What have you been avoiding that now asks to be seen? And if your soul feels ready to keep walking, deeper, quieter, truer, then this is your place. Not just a channel, but a temple. Subscribe and join a circle of seekers who no longer run from the end because they've begun to live from it. We release these videos like offerings, each one a prayer, each one a mirror, each one a map to awaken before the end, to remember who you are beneath the name, to walk together toward what cannot die, one breath at a time, one truth at a time, one sacred step on the hidden voyage. Soul Whisper and Soul Creator. The Hidden Voyage.